this is really getting exciting. But I want to hear what Coach Leahy has to say. How could Notre Dame lose a game? So finally he came out, and then he had a great voice, cut through steel, one of those guys. Played for Rockney himself, lantern jaw, great Irish-looking guy. And he didn't tell us why we lost or how we lost. He reminded us that we're going to lose. We're going to have losses in our lives at one time or another. And maybe more than one. Remember that. And use this loss to build up your strength, to build up your desire to win the next game, to build up your stability and to win, to always get ahead, and don't let the losses get you down. It was a wonderful talk. I went back to my room and I wrote the whole thing out and saved it all these years, and it was just great. So then, from Notre Dame, well, I tell you what, I had then told my parents that I will tell you, Mom and Dad, what I want to do when I graduate. So they're coming to my graduation. So they come to the graduation, and I had hung around with a guy for 4 years. He was, in our little team there. And one day I learned about 10 days before we graduated that he could play the piano. So I said, do you know Pennies from Heaven? And he said, well, sure. I said, let's go over to the music hall. And we rehearsed the song, Pennies from Heaven, over and over again, because that was what I was going to tell my mother. Mom, I want to be Bing Crosby. I want to sing like Bing. So they arrived. They drove in from New York. It was a long, arduous drive. They ran into a thunderstorm. They were angry when they got there. My mother was Italian. My father was Irish. Marine Corps, used to box. I take them across the campus. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. And there's Gus waiting behind the piano. We walk into the room. I cue Gus. My mother's looking at me. Every time it rains, pennies from heaven. Don't you know each cloud contains? My mother begins to cry. My father begins to flex his fists. I said, what am I, crazy? I wanted to tell you that I wanted to sing like Bing Crosby. I'm sorry, Mom. I'll do something else. Maybe television. And that's the way we left it. I was in the Korean War, went into the Navy, and served aboard an LSM squadron. And when they were in San Diego, because I was with the squadron commodore, we would stay ashore. And most of the guys were married. I wasn't married, so I lived in the bachelor's officers' quarters. And I became friendly with two Marines. One was Major Rankin, one was Major Flake. And these were guys who had been through World War II. They were during the Depression. They were young kids, no place to go, no money out there. They couldn't get a job. They joined the Marine Corps. By the time the war broke out, they were sergeants. During the war, their lieutenants would be killed in certain skirmishes, and they would be battlefield commissioned to become lieutenants. They stayed in the Marine Corps. They went through the Korean War. These were professional, tough guys. Neither one of them was married. They were married to the Marine Corps. But for some reason, I wound up with them, and I enjoyed it very much. One of them was very, very tough. The other guy became my friend for life, Major Rankin. On the last day of my stay in the service, I was packing up, and I had just mentioned them when they said, well, what's next for you? I said, I'm looking at television. I kind of think it's going to be. So, but I said, I don't have any talent. I mean, I see comedians, I see singers, I see entertainers, actors, actresses, but I'm not trained for anything. I studied sociology at Notre Dame just to impress my mother, who cried when I sang every time. Never mind. So, make a long story short, the Rankin left and went to tell the other fellow, who was really hardcore. He said, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? And I said, I don't know. I think about television, but I don't have any talent. I'm not trained. I don't know anything about it. I don't think I can do it. He said, don't you know that you can have anything you want in this life? You've only got to want it bad enough. Now, do you want it? I said, yes, sir, but I mean, I don't have the talent. I don't know. He got angry. I said, do you want it? I didn't want to tangle with him. For the first time in my life, I said, yes, sir, I want it. That's when I got in the car. He said, get in the car, drive up to Hollywood, knock on those doors until somebody gives you a break. And that's what I did. And only because he made me say yes for the first time in my life, this is what I want to do. So I looked at these kids today, all bright, all confident. How wonderful to start a career with all of that education behind you. I applaud them, and I applaud SMU for giving it to them. Anyway, I found a job at a little TV station in Los Angeles, Hollywood, KCOP, Channel 13, station that didn't have any network availability. It was on its own. And the guy said it was very tough himself, said, I had two lines on my resume, sociology major at Notre Dame and U.S. Navy. He said, look, I don't have anything open for you now, but I will have a job in the prop house sometime this summer. I will call you. Don't call me, but I'll call you. I went home. My uncle was a press agent all these years, believe it or not, at CBS, Arthur Godfrey and Edward R. Murrow. And he didn't want me to get involved in this business. My parents didn't either. But I told him that I met a fella in L.A. He's going to call me. My uncle, they're very competitive in New York with L.A. and vice versa in the entertainment business. He said, are you kidding? That's the oldest line in our business. He's never going to call you. Let me get you a job as a page at NBC, which he did. So I wind up at NBC. I sat out in front of 30 Rock, in front of that ice center that they have in the winter, and the little restaurant down there with all the umbrellas in the summer, scared to death. I went upstairs, and they put me in a uniform of a page. And my first job was at the Steve Allen Tonight Show. Steve Allen had started the Tonight Show at NBC. And there I was in the second balcony of the Hudson Theater on 44th Street, standing up there, waiting to seat the people. But I couldn't do it while Steve was rehearsing. And so I watched. And Steve Allen could play the piano. He wrote books. He was just brilliant. And his repertory company was Bill Dana and Louis Nye and Tom Poston. A lot of you folks may remember them, and probably many of you don't. But they were wonderful comedians, and they were his bulwark to get the show going. And for singers, he had Steve Lawrence and Edie Gomez, who were young kids at the time. And I looked at all that talent, and I said, my God, what kind of a business? Am I crazy that I'm going to be involved in this business? I just couldn't believe it. It made me even more insecure. One night, I was working on the Eddie Fisher show. Eddie Fisher was a big hit in those days. He had a little show, 7:30. So the thing was that Eddie Fisher would sing his final song, Lady of Spain, and he would go up the aisle, and the kids would rush out and grab him and tug at his clothes and love him. And there was an elevator back there, and one of the pages would stand at the elevator and hold it for Eddie Fisher to go down. Did you ever hear of Eddie Fisher, Mr. President? Good. Keep staring at me like I'm a student here. Anyway, I called my mother. I said, Mom, you're going to see me on TV tonight. I'm going to be there at the end of the show. Eddie Fisher will run up the aisle. I'll put him in the elevator, and he'll be gone on his vacation. Please watch tonight, because I was so proud that I was going to be on TV. And so that's what happened. Eddie Fisher belted out Lady of Spain, went up that aisle. The kids came out just like I thought they would. They, were pulling on him, and finally he got to the elevator, and I was holding the door, and the camera was on the two of us. He got in and was gone, and the show was over. Well, I ran down that hallway, the 6th floor of NBC, got on the phone. We had a little phone there, and I called my mother in the Bronx. I was very, very excited that I'd been on television for the first time in my life. And I said, Mom, did you see me on TV? And she said, yeah, but where was Eddie going on vacation? I said, Mom, it doesn't matter.